When the first light of morning touched the red-roofed houses of Oyo State, the sound of a muezzin's call drifted softly across the narrow streets where Fatima Abdullah grew up. Her father, Alhaji Abdul Rahman Abdullah, was the respected imam of their community, a man whose words carried the weight of faith and whose presence could calm even the noisiest crowd. Fatima was his pride, his only daughter among four sons, known for her quiet strength and beauty that carried both grace and modesty. From childhood, Fatima's life was painted in shades of discipline and devotion. Her days were structured: dawn prayers, Quranic recitation, and lessons under the neem tree before she walked briskly to school with her books clutched close to her chest. She was taught that obedience to Allah and to one's parents was the foundation of a peaceful life. She believed it wholeheartedly until love introduced itself in the unlikeliest of ways under the bright lights of the University of Lagos. It happened on a windy evening during her second year. Fatima had gone to the faculty library to return a psychology textbook when she met Samuel Peter. He was leaning against the wooden counter, laughing with the librarian, his laughter deep and warm like the sound of rain hitting old rooftops. He turned, their eyes met, and something subtle shifted in the air. Samuel, a civil engineering student from a Christian family in Oyo State, was everything her upbringing warned her against. Outspoken, curious, unafraid to challenge the world. Yet the sincerity in his eyes drew her in like a tide she couldn't resist. Their first conversation was brief, polite smiles, a shared joke about the library's slow system. But that was enough. Over the weeks that followed, Samuel always seemed to appear where she was, outside lecture halls, in the cafeteria queue, or near the faculty garden. At first, she thought it was coincidence. Later, she realized it was intention. And she didn't mind. What began as light banter grew into study sessions, long walks by the lagoon, and quiet moments that carried the promise of something deeper. They spoke about everything: books, family, dreams. Fatima confessed that she often dreamed of herself sitting in an office, speaking to couples, some happy, some crying, but she never knew what she was saying to them. Samuel listened, resting his chin on his palm, and said, "Maybe it's God showing you your calling to heal hearts." His words stayed with her. They often did. By the end of that semester, their friendship had become the kind that made people whisper. Fatima was from a strict Muslim background. Samuel was Christian, bold, and openly affectionate. Yet they carried themselves with such respect and genuine love that even lecturers couldn't help but smile when they saw them together. During the department's annual party, they won Best Couple 3 years in a row, an unspoken recognition that what they shared was rare. They studied side by side in the library until late at night, encouraged each other before exams, and shared quiet meals under the mango trees behind the arts complex. Samuel's laughter became her comfort, and Fatima's gentle voice became his calm in a noisy world. To him, she was peace wrapped in silk. To her, he was sunlight breaking through forbidden clouds. But love in their world was never simple. Each time Fatima thought of the future, fear crept in. Her father would never approve of a Christian husband. Her mother, though kinder, would never dare to oppose him. The thought of losing her family's blessing frightened her more than anything else. It was the one shadow that haunted her otherwise bright love story. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the lagoon and painted the sky gold, she turned to Samuel and said, "Sometimes I wonder if what we have is strong enough to survive the world waiting outside this campus." Samuel took her hand gently. "Fatima, love isn't about the world's approval. It's about two people willing to fight for what they know is real. But my father," she whispered, "he would rather see me buried than married to a Christian." Samuel smiled faintly. "Then we'll show him that love isn't about religion, it's about goodness. We'll fight for it together." He said it with such conviction that she believed him. For a while, faith and love replaced the fear in her heart. When they graduated, the future seemed promising. Samuel got a job at a construction firm in Lagos, while Fatima joined a reputable corporate company. They still made time for each other. Weekend visits, video calls, small gifts. Life was beginning to take shape, and they talked about marriage as though it were only a matter of time. Until that day, Fatima decided to take him home. That day shattered every illusion she had carefully built. The moment her father saw Samuel standing in his sitting room, dressed neatly and smiling nervously, silence fell over the entire house. Alhaji Abdulrahman's face hardened. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His disapproval filled the room like smoke. When Samuel introduced himself and stated his intentions, her father rose to his feet slowly, his white robe flowing like a warning. "So you are the one who has led my daughter astray," he said calmly, though his tone carried thunder. "A Christian boy who dares to step into my home to speak of marriage." Samuel bowed his head respectfully. "Sir, I came not to offend but to ask for your blessing. I love your daughter and wish to make her my wife." Her father's laughter was bitter. "Love? What does a man who rejects the prophet know about love? You have insulted me enough. Leave my house." Fatima tried to speak, but her father's glare silenced her. Samuel left quietly that day, but not before turning to her with eyes that said, "We'll still fight." That night, Fatima wept until her mother came to sit beside her. "My daughter," Miriam said softly, "a woman's joy is in her father's blessing. You cannot build a home on disobedience." Fatima didn't answer. She knew the weight those words carried in their culture. To marry without a father's blessing was to invite shame, not just upon oneself, but also a slap on his integrity. 3 months after their disastrous meeting, her father called her. "Fatima, sit down," her father said, his tone gentler than it had been in months. She sat, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes downcast. "I know you think I am being cruel," Al-Haji began. "I know you believe I don't care about your happiness. But Fatima, everything I do is because I love you. I want what is best for you, not just in this life, but in the next." "Yes," Fatima murmured. "There is a young man I would like you to meet. His name is Malik Bello. He comes from an excellent family. His father is a successful businessman in Abuja, and his mother is a professor of Islamic studies at the University of Abuja. Malik himself is a pharmacist with his own pharmacy. He is educated, successful, and from what I understand, a very devout and kind young man." Fatima's head snapped up. "Father, I don't want to meet anyone. I am not asking you to marry him tomorrow." Al-Haji Yusuf interrupted firmly. "I am asking you to meet him, to give him a chance. Is that too much to ask? Can you not do this one thing for your father, who has given you everything?" The emotional manipulation was not lost on Fatima, but she also heard the pleading note in her father's voice. He was trying, in his own way, to find a compromise. "How many times do I need to meet him?" She asked quietly. 3 times. 3 dates. That's all I ask. If after 3 dates you truly feel nothing, if you are certain he is not right for you, then we will discuss other options. It wasn't a promise to accept Samuel, but it was the first hint of flexibility her father had shown. Fatima grasped at this small olive branch. "Only 3 dates," she confirmed. "Only 3. You have my word." That evening, Fatima called Samuel. She explained the situation, her voice heavy with resignation. "I have to do this, Samuel. I must show him I tried. Maybe after this, he'll be more open to listening to us." Samuel didn't like it, but he understood. "Okay, 3 dates. But Fatima, remember you're mine and I'm yours. Nothing changes that." "Nothing changes that," she agreed. The first date with Malik took place at a quiet restaurant in Victoria Island. Fatima arrived with low expectations and a heart full of resistance. She was prepared to dislike everything about this man her father had chosen for her, but Malik surprised her. He was handsome, tall, and well-built, with an easy smile and kind eyes. He stood when she arrived, pulled out her chair, and immediately put her at ease. "Fatima, thank you for agreeing to meet me," he said sincerely. "I know this situation is probably not ideal for you. Your father has told me about your previous relationship. I want you to know I'm not here to force anything. I'm just here to get to know you if you'll let me." His honesty disarmed her. They talked for 2 hours about their work, their families, their hopes and dreams. Malik was articulate and intelligent, well-read and thoughtful. He made her laugh with stories from his pharmacy, where he dealt with eccentric customers and demanding suppliers. He listened attentively when she talked about her work, asking insightful questions and showing genuine interest. When the date ended, Fatima found herself confused. She had expected to hate him, but she didn't. He was actually quite likable. The second day was a week later, a walk through Freedom Park followed by dinner at a Lebanese restaurant Malik loved. Again, Fatima found herself enjoying his company despite her intentions to remain distant. Malik was respectful, never pushing boundaries, never trying to hold her hand or get too close. He was content to simply talk, to learn about her, to share pieces of himself. "Tell me about your dream of being a relationship counselor," he said as they walked through the park. "Your father mentioned you've always wanted to do that." Fatima was surprised her father had shared that detail. She found herself opening up about her recurring dreams, her passion for helping couples, her vision for what her counseling practice might look like someday. "That's beautiful," Malik said thoughtfully. "The world needs more people who are committed to helping others build strong relationships. With divorce rates climbing and families falling apart, that kind of work is so important." "You really think so?" Fatima asked, touched by his understanding. "Absolutely. And I think you'd be excellent at it. You have this way of listening, of really hearing what people are saying. It's rare." By the third date, Fatima had to admit a troubling truth. Malik was wonderful. He was everything her parents could want for her. Successful, kind, devout from a good family. In another life, in another world where she hadn't already given her heart to Samuel, she could have fallen for Malik easily. But the heart wants what the heart wants, and her heart wanted Samuel. After their third date, as Malik drove her home, he turned to her with a serious expression. "Fatima, I know you're in love with someone else," he said quietly. "I can see it in your eyes, in the way you sometimes look distant even when we're talking. And I want you to know I respect that. Love is a gift from Allah, and it's not something that can be forced or forgotten easily." Fatima was stunned by his perception and his grace. But Malik continued, "I also want you to know that I could make you happy. Maybe not in the same way, maybe not with the same passion you feel for him, but I could give you a good life. I could be a good husband to you. I would respect you, support your dreams, and be a good father to our children. That's all I can offer, but I offer it sincerely." Tears welled up in Fatima's eyes. "Malik, you are an incredible man. Any woman would be blessed to have you. But Malik took the words from her mouth. "You love him," Malik finished gently. "I know, and I won't push you. But think about it, Fatima. Think about what kind of life you want, what kind of challenges you're willing to face. Because loving someone from a different faith, building a life together against your family's wishes, that's a hard road." He was right, and Fatima knew it. The question was whether she had the strength to walk that hard road, or whether she would choose the easier path Malik represented. When Fatima went inside, her mother was waiting up for her. "Well," Miriam asked eagerly, "what do you think of Malik?" Fatima sank onto the couch, exhausted emotionally and physically. "He's wonderful, Mum. He's everything you and Father could want." "But," her mother sensed the hesitation, "but I don't love him. I love Samuel." Miriam sat beside her daughter and took her hand. Fatima, my dear child, love is important, yes, but it's not the only thing that matters in a marriage. Respect, compatibility, shared values, these things matter too. And sometimes love grows over time. When your father and I married, it was arranged by our families. I barely knew him, but over the years, we built a life together. But you had the chance to build that love, Mama. What if I marry Malik and the love never comes? What if I spend my whole life mourning what I could have had with Samuel? And what if you marry Samuel and face a lifetime of family strife, religious conflict, and social stigma? Miriam countered gently. Life is full of what-ifs, Fatima. The question is which what-ifs you can live with. Over the following weeks, the pressure on Fatima intensified. Malik began visiting regularly, bringing gifts for her family, charming her parents and brothers. Al-Haji spoke glowingly of him, mentioning repeatedly what a fine husband he would make. Invitations began arriving for family gatherings where Malik would be present. The implication was clear. The family was expecting an engagement announcement. Fatima called Samuel on the phone, complaining. I can't take this much longer, Fatima confessed during one of their brief meetings. My family is constantly talking about Malik, pushing us together. And Samuel, he's so good to them. They love him. But do you love him? Samuel asked, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. That's not fair, Samuel. Answer the question, Fatima. Do you love him? No. No, I love you. Only you. But what? But is it hard? But your family approve of him? Fatima, life is hard. Love is hard. But it's worth fighting for. We're worth fighting for. I know that. Fatima's voice rose in frustration. Don't you think I know that? But Samuel, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. Every single day, my mother talks about how Malik is from such a good family. How blessed I would be to marry him. My father looks at me with such hope in his eyes. They literally keep telling me I'm foolish, that I'm throwing away a good opportunity for a relationship that will only bring me pain and shame. Samuel's expression softened. He apologized. I'm sorry for not understanding how hard this is for you. But Fatima, please don't give up on us. Please. I'm not giving up, Fatima said, but even as she spoke the words, she could hear the doubt creeping into her voice. I need time to think. I need to figure out how to make everyone understand. That evening, Fatima summoned her courage and called Al-Haji, her father, to discuss her decision with him. Father, I have gone on 3 dates with Malik as I promised. He's a great man, but I won't marry him. I love Samuel, and that is who I'd like to spend the rest of my life with. Al-Haji asked against all odds, you still want to go ahead with this ungodly union? Fatima, have you thought of what people will say? I am Al-Haji Abdul Rahman. I teach people about religion, Allah the Greatest, and about family life. How will my own daughter marry a Christian right under my nose? Fatima, I forbid you to see that boy again. Fatima looked into her father's eyes and said, Father, it's always about you, your position and your dignity. I have always been your sacrificial lamb to keep up with your social status. Father, I'm done with all of that. As Al-Haji stood up to slap Fatima for saying such words to him, he felt his blood and fluids running in the opposite direction. He fell down. Al-Haji was rushed to the hospital and was confirmed to have very high blood pressure. Fatima cried her eyes out. She blamed herself. If she hadn't confronted her father, this wouldn't have happened. She sat next to her father, praying silently that if he could wake up, she would do everything humanly possible to make him at rest and not furious like the other day. She made up her mind to marry Malik. She wanted Samuel so much, yet she couldn't afford to lose her father and her family. The pressure increased daily. Subtle prayers, quiet reminders, soft manipulations. Fatima's resistance weakened under the weight of her family's expectations. She wanted their approval, their peace, their love. In the end, she bowed. One evening, she called Samuel. Her voice was trembling. Can you meet me at the restaurant near our street? When he arrived, she couldn't meet his eyes. The world outside was loud. Cars, laughter, the clatter of plates. But inside her, everything was silent. She said quietly, Samuel, we need to end this. I'm getting married next month. He froze. What did you just say? I'm marrying Malik, she whispered. Samuel stared at her, his heart pounding. Why, Fatima? I thought we were fighting for us. I thought. She interrupted, tears slipping down her cheeks. I have to do this. My father's blessing matters. My family's peace matters. Samuel's voice broke. And what about our peace? Our dreams? Fatima stood. Some dreams are meant to end. He asked one last question, a question that would echo in both their lives for years. Did you ever love me? Fatima couldn't answer. Her lips trembled, her silence screamed, and then she turned and walked away, crying as the world blurred around her. That night, Samuel sat in his small apartment, staring at her picture on his phone until dawn. The next morning, he went to work but couldn't focus. Days turned to weeks, and pain turned into numbness. He lost his job, then his will to live normally. His father, Pastor David, who wasn't cool with his son's decision to marry a Muslim, later reconsidered after seeing what Samuel had turned into because of his love for Fatima. At first, he thought they were infatuated. When they see things clearly, they would come to their senses. But seeing as things progressed, he needed to act fast. So he called Samuel to dine with him for the night. When he arrived, he couldn't recognize his son anymore. He was slim, looking unkempt, and his eyes had lost life. That lady, he paused. I would go and talk to her myself. As if Samuel's acupuncture point was touched, Samuel froze for some minutes and said, Dad, she's gone. She's getting married next month. His father said confidently, as far as she hasn't married yet, we can still do something about the situation on the ground. Samuel objected. Dad, I don't know what love really is, but in my own little world, I feel love is seeing the other partner do what they are happy with. I don't want to disturb her anymore. From the bottom of my heart, I have given her my blessings. As far as she's happy, I will be happy. Pastor David looked at Samuel and sighed worriedly and helplessly, but he didn't say anything. Afterwards, he watched as Samuel played with the food served. After taking 2 spoons, he stood up and said his goodbyes. After he left, Pastor David called his brother in the UK. Maybe a change of place will heal him, he said. Within months, Samuel was on a plane to London, leaving behind the pieces of love he couldn't bury. Fatima married Malik in a beautiful ceremony. Guests praised how radiant she looked, how lucky she was. But behind her veil, her smile was forced, her eyes empty. She had won her family's approval, but lost her heart. The early days of Fatima's marriage to Malik were peaceful enough to fool the world. He was attentive, polite, and deeply respectful of her family. In public, he held her hand gently as though she were something fragile. In private, he often smiled and said, You're my gift from Allah. And for a while, she believed him. She told herself she had made peace with her past, that perhaps love could grow from obedience. Their home in Abuja was spacious and warm, with cream curtains that danced when the breeze entered and the distant sound of the evening call to prayer filling the air. On weekends, Malik's family visited. His mother adored Fatima, showering her with fabrics and gold jewelry. They would sit on the balcony sipping zobo, laughing about little things. It was an easy rhythm, one that looked perfect from the outside. But even perfect rhythms can carry silent dissonance. Some nights, Fatima would wake up from dreams of Samuel's laughter echoing through her mind. She would turn to see Malik sleeping peacefully beside her, and guilt would press against her chest. She prayed harder, fasted more, begged Allah to erase memories that refused to die. For years passed. The laughter in her home dimmed slowly, replaced by whispers, the kind that coil around a woman's heart and choke her softly. She could not conceive. At first, Malik was understanding. He would hold her hand after another failed test and say, Allah's time is best. But patience, like a candle, burns low over time. He began staying out late. His phone, once carelessly left on the table, was now guarded like treasure. When she asked softly, Malik, is everything all right? He would smile thinly. You worry too much. Her mother noticed the tension during one of her visits and told her, My daughter, you think too deeply. Marriage is endurance. Endure, and God will bless you with a child. Don't make small matters big. So she endured through nights of loneliness, through Malik's growing coldness, through silence that hurt more than shouting ever could. By the 6th year, the cracks could no longer be hidden. One Saturday morning, Malik told her, "My family wants to see us." His tone was flat. Fatima dressed carefully, tying her headscarf perfectly, hoping maybe it was good news, perhaps an adoption discussion or a new beginning. When she arrived, she saw familiar faces except for one, a young woman holding a little boy. Fatima's stomach tightened. She greeted everyone politely, forcing a smile. Then Malik's father cleared his throat. "Fatima," he began, "this is Khadija, Malik's second wife, and this child is their son." The room spun. For a moment, Fatima thought she hadn't heard correctly. Second wife. Her hands trembled as she turned to Malik. He didn't meet her eyes. "Islam allows it," he said quietly. "You know this. As long as I am fair." Fair. The word burned in her ears. She had known polygamy was permitted, but she came from a monogamous home. She was unprepared for the reality of sharing her life, her bed, her husband. Still, she bowed her head and whispered, "If this is Allah's will, may He grant me peace." But peace never came. Khadija moved into their home a week later, and with her came storms Fatima had never known. The young woman was brash, loud, and quick to taunt. "Auntie," she would sneer, "you're the senior wife, but you act like the housemaid. Maybe if you had given him a child, you'd be happier." Fatima bore it silently at first. She cooked, cleaned, prayed, and cried into her pillow at night. Malik began to take sides subtly, small things at first. He laughed more with Khadija, lingered in her room longer, and when Fatima complained, he sighed. "Stop being jealous. Be patient." Patience. The same word she had clung to like a lifeline for years now felt like a curse. Slowly, depression wrapped itself around her like a wet cloth. She stopped smiling. Her once bright eyes dulled. Eventually, her body gave up. She fell ill and was hospitalized for a month. Through those long nights in the hospital bed, she realized Malik never visited once. Only her mother came, sitting beside her, weeping quietly and whispering prayers of regret. When she was finally discharged, she returned home only to find her bags packed neatly outside. Khadija was at the door, arms folded, a cruel smirk on her face. "Senior wife," she said mockingly, "your time here is over." That night, Fatima returned to her parents' house. Her father, once so proud, couldn't meet her eyes. Her mother was heartbroken. "We wanted the best for you," she said softly, "but we built our life on our own fears." To protect their family's reputation, Fatima moved to Lagos and started over. For months, she searched for work, sending out applications, praying at dawn, fasting for strength. Life, she realized, was both cruel and kind. Cruel in how it tested her, kind in how it taught her. She remembered the dreams of her youth, sitting in an office, advising couples. Maybe that dream had never left for a reason. Maybe Allah wanted her pain to become purpose. She began a small relationship blog online, sharing lessons about love, patience, and self-worth. Her gentle voice, filled with sincerity, drew people in. Slowly, her followers grew. She saved every naira she earned from small writing gigs, hoping to open an office one day, a place where she could counsel others. In the meantime, she found work teaching Yoruba to Bella, the daughter of a wealthy family who had just moved from the UK. The girl was sweet and curious, and her mother, and adored Fatima's calmness. "You're like a breath of fresh air," and would say, handing her tea after lessons. After 2 months, and mentioned that her husband would finally be returning from the UK. "Bella misses her father terribly. He's been away finishing some contracts. You'll meet him soon," she said with a proud smile. Fatima smiled politely. Okay. She had no idea that fate was weaving a cruel coincidence. When Anne's husband finally returned, Fatima happened to be at the house teaching. She was arranging Bella's books in the living room when the door opened and Anne's voice rang out. "Darling." "You're home." Fatima turned, and the world stood still. Standing in the doorway, holding 2 suitcases, was Samuel Peter. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Samuel's smile froze. The color drained from his face. The teacher Bella had talked about for weeks was Fatima. Fatima's knees weakened. She managed a small bow. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, her voice barely steady. Without waiting for a reply, she took the luggage from him and carried it inside, avoiding his gaze. She muttered an excuse to and about needing outside. Her hands shook as she hailed a cab. The city blurred behind her tears. How could fate be this cruel? She had tried so hard to build a new life, and now the ghost of her past stood smiling in her student's home. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying his face, older, broader, but with the same deep eyes. She decided she couldn't keep teaching Bella. It would only bring chaos. 3 days later, she returned to the house, her resignation letter folded neatly in her hand. Samuel was sitting beside, and when she arrived, he looked calm, but his eyes betrayed tension. Fatima spoke formally. "Madam, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to continue tutoring Bella. I have personal matters to attend to," and frowned. "You're such a wonderful teacher. Are you sure you can't stay until we find a replacement?" Fatima forced a smile. "I'm afraid I can't, Ma, but thank you for everything," and tried to add money to her payment in appreciation, but Fatima refused. "Please, Ma, this is enough." Samuel watched silently. When Fatima turned to leave, he said quietly, "Thank you for helping my daughter. You can go, Miss Fatima." His tone was formal and distant. She nodded once and walked out. Minutes later, Samuel told his wife he needed to get something outside. He followed Fatima discreetly, watching where she lived. When he saw the small, modest apartment she returned to, something inside him twisted. Sadness, guilt, maybe regret. He had imagined her life to be brighter, easier. Instead, she was surviving quietly alone. 2 days later, he showed up at her door. When Fatima returned from the market and saw him sitting by her doorstep, her heart skipped. "Samuel?" she asked softly. "What are you doing here?" He stood, brushing dust from his trousers. "We need to talk." "What?" she asked cautiously. "About us," he said simply. They went to a nearby park, quiet, shaded by old trees. Fatima sat, her hands clasped tightly. Samuel looked at her, his voice low but edged with anger. "Why? Fatima? Why did you walk away that day? You broke me. You made me believe love could survive anything, and then you left me for Malik." Tears welled in her eyes. "Samuel, I only wanted to obey my parents. I wanted their blessing. I thought I was doing the right thing. Did the right thing make you happy?" He snapped. "Where's Malik now? Where was he when you were crying alone?" She bowed her head, her voice trembling. "He's gone. I lost everything." Samuel sighed, his anger deflating into sorrow. "We had something good, Fatima. I would have fought the world for you." She whispered, "I was too afraid to fight with you." Silence hung between them, heavy and raw. She stood suddenly, wiping her eyes. "It's over now, Samuel. There's no reason to cry over spilled milk. You have a wife and daughter. Go home." He watched her walk away again, the same familiar ache tightening in his chest. That night, neither of them slept. Days turned into weeks, and though they tried to bury the encounter, fate, restless and unkind, had other plans. The city had begun to wear the colors of harmattan, pale skies, tired leaves, and air that carried the faint smell of dust and distant firewood. Fatima moved through her days quietly, teaching part-time at a community school and writing short advice pieces online under the name The Silent Heart. People loved her writing because it felt honest, like someone who had walked through fire and come out knowing the language of smoke. But inside, she was exhausted. Seeing Samuel again had reopened old wounds she thought had long healed. Sometimes she caught herself wondering how his mornings looked now, if he still prayed at dawn, if he still took his tea with honey instead of sugar, if his daughter laughed the way he used to. She would shake the thoughts off and bury herself in work. But emotions have a way of waiting, patient, stubborn, ready to rise again at the faintest spark. One Friday evening, the sky grew dark before its time. Fatima had stayed late at the school she had just started, marking essays. She packed her things hurriedly, hoping to beat the rain, but the clouds were faster. By the time she stepped outside, the heavens had already opened. She ran to the nearest shade, a small roadside shop with rusted zinc roofing. The sound of the rain was deafening. Thunder rolled. She wrapped her scarf tighter, watching the drops bounce off the ground like tiny dancers. A car slowed to a stop nearby. Through the curtain of rain, she saw the familiar outline of Samuel's SUV. For a moment, she thought it was her imagination. But then the window rolled down, and his voice called out, "Fatima, get in. You'll catch cold." She hesitated, heart pounding. But the rain was too heavy and the wind too wild. She dashed to the car, soaked halfway through, and climbed in. The warmth of the vehicle wrapped around her instantly. Samuel handed her his handkerchief. "You still never carry an umbrella," he said softly, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. She avoided his gaze. Some habits die hard. He drove in silence for a while, the rain drumming gently against the windows. The air between them was thick, not awkward, just charged with unspoken things. He finally spoke. "I've thought about you every day since that afternoon." Fatima turned to look at him. "Samuel, please." He shook his head. "Let me talk. I'm not here to cause trouble. I never stopped wondering what life would have been if we'd fought harder. If you hadn't left that morning." Her throat tightened. "And I've wondered what would have happened if I'd stayed." Their eyes met briefly, and something old and fragile stirred. The same warmth that once made the world brighter. But this time it felt dangerous, forbidden. When he dropped her off at home, she reached for the door handle quickly. "Thank you for the ride, Fatima," he said quietly. "Can we at least be friends?" She hesitated. "Friends? Samuel, you're married." He smiled faintly, but his eyes looked tired. "I know. It's just sometimes friendship is all the heart allows when love has no permission." That night, Fatima couldn't sleep. His words echoed in her chest. She told herself she wouldn't see him again, that she needed to let the past rest. But the universe had its own mischief. From that day, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes at church events where Anne volunteered and Fatima happened to assist. Other times when Bella would insist, "Auntie Fatima, can you please explain this Yoruba word to me?" Fatima always resisted, but Samuel's quiet messages, always polite, never intrusive, chipped away at her walls. One evening, after a charity event, it began to rain again. The same kind of heavy, insistent rain that drowned out reason. Samuel offered to drive her home, and this time, she didn't argue. Halfway through the drive, the car broke down near an old park. They decided to wait it out under a small pavilion. The rain fell like a curtain around them, isolating the world. Samuel removed his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. "You're still trembling," he said softly. Fatima's voice was barely a whisper. "You shouldn't be here with me like this." "Maybe," he said, "but I can't keep pretending I don't care." Something inside her broke. She looked up, eyes wet with tears, not from the rain, but from the weight of everything she'd held in for years. "Samuel, we can't rewrite the past." He reached out gently, brushing a raindrop from her cheek. "Then let's not rewrite it. Let's forgive it." And for the first time in years, Fatima let herself cry openly. Not just for Samuel, but for the years lost, for Malik's betrayal, for her parents' pressure, for her own silence. Samuel held her, not with desire, but with the desperate tenderness of someone trying to hold together all the broken pieces of another soul. When the rain stopped, she stepped away, wiping her eyes. "We have to be careful, Samuel. We can't hurt anyone else because we couldn't heal ourselves." He nodded. "You're right, but I can't lie. Seeing you again feels like breathing after years underwater." She smiled weakly. "And maybe that's all we needed, to breathe, not to drown again." Rain started falling heavily outside. Both of them knew it was time Samuel left, but the rain poured more. So Fatima decided to prepare hot tea for Samuel since it was cold indoors. As she gave Samuel a cup of tea, her fingers brushed his. They both looked at each other with intense gaze, full of passion and longing. Maybe it was because Samuel had been meaning to rekindle his love for her, or because Fatima had been celibate for a very long time. They couldn't control themselves, and they did it. When they finished, Fatima processed what happened between them and regretted her actions immediately. Samuel seemed to have been satisfied like never before. It wasn't that he hadn't been intimate with Annie, but strangely, this felt different, very different. He looked at Fatima's disturbed face and said, "Fatima, we are adults. We both crossed the line, and it's by mutual consent. I will take full responsibility." "This was a mistake," Fatima cut in. Samuel's eyes dimmed. "A mistake, Fatima?" he asked. "Yes, it is," she responded. "Samuel, you need to go, please. I do not want to talk about this ever again." They went their separate ways that night. But destiny, as always, was not done playing. Months later, Fatima began to feel unwell. At first, she dismissed it as stress. But when her appetite vanished and dizziness became frequent, she went to the clinic. The nurse returned with a smile that froze her heart. "Congratulations, Ma. You're pregnant." Fatima stared, numb. "That's impossible," she whispered. But the truth stared back from the test result. Her world collapsed silently. She thought of her family, of Samuel's wife, of the scandal that would erupt if the truth came out. For the first time in years, she felt trapped again. Not by family or society this time, but by fate itself. She decided she would keep it quiet. She moved away from Lagos to a small town outside Akure, where no one knew her. She rented a modest room and began teaching in a private school to survive. She avoided calls, messages, and the internet. She raised her head only to pray and wept only when the nights were too heavy. 9 months later, she gave birth to twins, 2 boys. Brian was small and quiet while Bright was a bit naughty, but his eyes were Samuel's. For 2 years, she raised them alone. The boys grew strong and playful, their laughter filling the little room with warmth. But fate, relentless as ever, came knocking again. Bright fell sick one night, burning with fever that no medicine could calm. Desperate, Fatima rushed him to the nearest hospital. The doctor examined the child and frowned. "He needs surgery, but we don't have the equipment here. You'll have to go to the teaching hospital in Lagos." Lagos, the city she had fled. With trembling hands, she packed her things and took the first bus. By dawn, she was at the hospital. As she waited at the emergency desk, Dr. Smith, in charge. Dr. Smith attended to her. After examining Bright, he frowned. "The boy has a fever and is critically low on blood. He has a rare blood type." He paused, his voice grave. "We tested your blood, madam. It doesn't match his. Our blood bank doesn't have his type, and I've contacted other hospitals. None of them has it either." He looked at her sharply. "Where is the boy's father?" "Father?" That was the last person Fatima wanted to think about right now. "He's currently not available." "Doctor, why are you asking for his father?" "Madam, contact your husband immediately. We need his blood sample. If it matches, we can proceed with treatment." Fatima didn't hesitate. She rushed to Samuel's construction company. She begged the secretary urgently. But when no one budged, she raised her voice, causing a scene. Employees gathered, curious and alarmed. Samuel, napping in his office, heard the commotion. Frustrated, he stepped out to see what was happening and froze. Standing there, stressed and desperate, was Fatima, the woman he hadn't seen in 3 years. He waved the secretary to let her in. With both of them in the office, "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly, noticing slight changes in her appearance. Fatima fell to her knees. "Samuel, I know I've offended you, and you probably don't want to see me again. I'm sorry, but right now I need your help." Samuel laughed bitterly. "You need my help? So you can make a scene in my office and ask me for help? What makes you think I'll help you?" Tears streamed down her face. "Samuel, it's a matter of life and death. Please." He softened slightly. "Do you need money? How much?" "I'll give you enough, but you must promise never to come back to my office again." Fatima shook her head, anxious. "No, I need your help with blood. My son, he has a rare blood type, the same as yours. I can't find a donor anywhere. Please, Samuel, you have to help him." Samuel's breath caught. "You have a son now." She nodded. He exhaled sharply. "So you want me to save your son?" "Yes." Samuel stood, rigid. "Fatima, I'm not going anywhere with you. I can give you money, but that's it." He threw a wad of cash on the floor and turned to leave. Fatima grabbed one of his legs. "He's your son, Samuel. The baby is yours. I've tried everything. but I can't find a donor." Samuel stopped in his tracks, his voice cold yet trembling. "What did you say?" Fatima stuttered, tears falling freely. "That night, we were intimate. 2 months later, I realized I was pregnant, and I gave birth to him." Samuel froze, speechless. Seconds passed before he could speak. "You got pregnant and didn't tell me until now." She couldn't answer. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry, please save the boy." He hesitated, anger and confusion swirling inside him. Then he grabbed his car keys. "Lead the way," he muttered, voice dull. Fatima wiped her tears and followed silently. The journey to the hospital was tense and quiet. Legos stretched around them, hot, dusty, and noisy. But inside the car, the air was heavy with unspoken emotions. When they arrived, Dr. Smith guided them to Bright's room. Frail, hooked to and for, Bright looked up weakly. "Mummy," he whispered. Samuel's heart stopped. The boy's eyes were unmistakably his, deep brown, searching, familiar. He didn't need a test. His heart already knew. Just then, another small hand grabbed Fatima's shirt. Samuel looked down to see Brian, the other twin, holding on tightly. His eyes mirrored Samuel's. Fatima's mother had accompanied Brian and was stunned to see Samuel. Samuel greeted her respectfully. "Long time no see, Ma," Fatima explained anxiously. "Mum, he's the father of my boys." "Samuel, these are your sons." Brian on the bed and Bright here. The doctor stepped forward. "You must be the donor?" Samuel nodded, still silent. Within minutes, he was donating blood. As the crimson flowed, he felt an unexpected calm. For once, he focused only on saving these small lives, forgetting betrayal, hurt, or fear. When it was over, the doctor smiled. "The child will recover. You came just in time." Samuel's voice shook as he asked Fatima, Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" "I couldn't," she whispered, broken. "I couldn't bear to scatter your family. You have a home, a wife, a daughter. Life wasn't fair to me after we separated. I thought I'd lost everything. I didn't want to take away what you had." Samuel's chest tightened. "You think my life went smoothly," he said bitterly. "We struggled too. We had 2 failed IVF. Every test was normal, yet nothing. My daughter Bella, our daughter, we adopted her." He rubbed his face, struggling to control his emotions. "You kept my sons from me for 2 whole years." "No, Samuel," Fatima cried. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was protecting your family." "Protecting me? Or protecting your own fear?" Samuel's voice cracked. "You put everyone else above our love. Then again, because of what people might say, you kept my sons from me." Fatima could only whisper, "I'm sorry." Samuel exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair. "No matter what, I deserve to know." 2-year-old twins mine, he took a shaky breath and walked to the doctor. The sterile hospital air filled the room. Samuel rolled up his sleeve and donated without hesitation. Watching the crimson flow, he marveled at the irony. The same blood that ran from him was giving his sons a second chance at life. That night, he went home to find Annie waiting, tense. He told her everything. Every hidden truth. Every guilt he had carried. Annie didn't speak for a long while. Finally, she said quietly, "I need space." She packed a few things and left with their daughter to the UK. For days, Samuel couldn't sleep. Weeks later, he returned to see Fatima with Brian and Bright. Seeing his sons, lively and innocent, stirred something deep inside him. But the pain of being kept in the dark burned. "Fatima," he said, his voice heavy, "I'm going to fight for my son's custody. You can't keep me away from what's mine. Since you kept me in the dark for 3 years, I will take them." Fatima cried, desperate. "Samuel, you can't do this. I love my sons. They are my world." Fatima's mother entered the room, her wrapper tied neatly, her expression calm yet firm. She walked straight to Samuel and lowered herself to her knees, followed by Fatima. "Please, my son," the woman said softly. "Anger does not build a home. It only burns what remains. Whatever mistakes we have made, please forgive us. You have both suffered enough. Don't let the children grow with bitterness in their hearts." Samuel stood motionless for a long moment. Slowly, the fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced by exhaustion and quiet understanding. He bent down gently, lifting Fatima's mother to her feet. "Please, Mama, don't kneel." "You don't owe me that," he said quietly. In the months that followed, Samuel and Fatima chose to co-parent the twins. Slowly, old wounds began to heal. Bella, Samuel's daughter, called her father every weekend via video, her voice bright with excitement. "Dad, I miss you. I'll come to Nigeria to visit soon." 5 years passed like a soft whisper. Bella, now older and wiser, returned to Nigeria for a visit. When she saw Fatima, she studied her for a long moment before offering a faint, understanding smile. "You were cruel to my mother," Bella said softly, "but I've forgiven you. Life takes us where we do not plan, and maybe that's how we find who we truly are." She turned to look at Brian and Bright, her half-brothers, playing happily in the garden. "And because of them," she added with a smile, "I've learned to let go." They all stood there together, Fatima, Samuel, the twins, and Bella, a family stitched together by time, tears, and forgiveness. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As the evening breeze rustled through the trees, the narrator's voice seemed to rise softly from the quiet. When two rivers meet, they do not fight over who flows first. They simply find a way to move together. Life is like that, full of broken paths that sometimes lead us home again. Anger may last the night, but forgiveness is the dawn that never fades. And with that, the story of Fatima and Samuel closed, not with sorrow, but with the peace that comes only when the heart finally learns to forgive.